Okay, welcome, ladies. This is our first session of the Zohar Study Group. Today is Thursday, August 31st, 2023. This is going to be, God willing, one of many gatherings together to learn the Holy Zohar. I'm super excited to be here and to share with you. Before we start the learning, I just wanted to dedicate the class to my teacher and mentor, who has taught me a lot of Zohar, and his name is Rabbi Chaim Miller. And I would like to dedicate this class to him. May Hashem bless Chaim ben Devora with his family in the new year, Shana Tova, filled with bracha and hatzlacha and good health and many, many revealed blessings. I'd also like to dedicate the class to my mom, Jacqueline Bat Alia, that Hashem should bless her with a refuah shalema. Thank you. Now I'd like to set the kavanah, the intention for our gathering today. I have a prayer that I put together to help us connect. So I really feel like doing a meditation right now. But I think I'll save that for next week's class, because next week we're gonna do more meditative learning. But for today, I just wanted to set the intention and just take a few breaths and just release some of the energy from running around. It's the middle of the day and we're taking time out to learn Zohar, and to just open ourselves up to the energy of Hashem. And my prayer is, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elohei avotenu, that in the zchut of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in the zchut of the Ari Kadosh, and in the zchut of Rav Chaim Vital and Moshe Rabbeinu, that we will be able to draw down the chokhmah, the bina, and the das, or da'at if you're Sephardic, the wisdom, the understanding, and the consciousness of the teachings of the Holy Zohar, so we can integrate them fully into our lives and be worthy vessels to receive Hashem's great light and revealed blessings. Okay. So today we're going to have an introduction to the Zohar. Many people who are joining today have some sort of background in Kabbalah and Chassidus and have learned about the Zohar from different teachers and texts. Today we're going to focus on how important the Zohar is in the teachings of Kabbalah, and how it really is the foundational text that is the source for many teachings that came later on in Kabbalah and Chassidus. So the Zohar is for sure the most important book in Kabbalah. That's not an understatement. It's very much a very big influence in the Kabbalistic world. The Zohar was attributed to the holy teacher Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived in the times of the 2nd century, around the time of after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the second one. And he was the student of Rabbi Akiva, and he had many, many students himself. And you can see the teachings of Rabbi Shimon not only in the Zohar, but also in the actual Mishnah, which is in the oral tradition. So he's one of the most popular sages mentioned in the Mishnah. So many of his teachings are there. So the Zohar is really a foundational text in Jewish mysticism, but it comes from the category of Torah that's called Midrash Agadah, the Midrash. And the Midrash is a collection of conversations that the rabbis had that were meant to be wisdom for living. Now, the Torah is separated between Midrash Halacha, which is the practical laws of the Torah, And then there's the Midrash Haggadah, which are more like the stories, the things that are meant to like open up your heart to understand the deeper meaning. So if you have halakha tells you what you do, how you do it, all of the details of the Jewish system of practices, the spiritual practices. And the Agadah is really trying to open up your heart to understand, why do we do what we do? What are the deeper teachings there? Whether it's for relationships, how to be in our relationships, whether it's for our health, whether it's for our relationship with God. It's really there to open up your heart to understand the why behind everything. So in this particular text of the Zohar, there is a hyper focus on analyzing the text like Torah detectives, and trying to understand, how is the Torah, the actual written Torah, how is it relevant in our times now? So it was always about trying to discover new insights. And you'll see as we learn that the rabbis get very excited when they discover new insights. It's always about what's fresh, what's new, right? And so they have this concept that is a foundational concept in all of Torah learning, but we see it very dominant in the Zohar. It's this, it's a learning approach called Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava means, let's say there's a verse in the Torah that says, Vayhi bayom ahu, and it was on that day. So if they see the text in one place talking about that on Rosh Hashanah it said Vayhi bayom ahu, then they're going to go dig out where else in the Torah do they use the same exact verse, and then they're going to try to connect the dots between those two verses. So because the Torah is a divine text, there's this hyper focus on the text as like, what else could be revealed that we haven't yet discovered. So Gezerah Shava is something that you'll constantly see in the Zohar. They'll mention one verse, give you the meaning, and then all of a sudden it's like sort of like word association. They'll try to find how else is it connected to something else that's in the Torah. Now, we're used to learning Torah in a way that's like very analytical and rational and linear. That's not really the way that the Zohar works. The Zohar is like very poetic and very free-flowing. And the way that I see it is that we're used to learning things in a way that's like really organized and categorized and systemic within like Jewish law or Jewish practices, where one thing leads to the other. In the Zohar, it doesn't really work like that. It's very, it's definitely tapping into the Kabbalistic system that we are familiar with, but it doesn't spell it out for you. It is purposely, the Zohar is purposely mysterious. It's really trying hard to help you understand an experience of the divine rather than understanding the divine just from the rational. So if you've ever had very deep spiritual, mystical experiences, you know that it was very real and very tangible, but it's very hard to put it into words. And so that's something that I think is really important to keep in mind with the Zohar, is that a lot of these sages, when they're coming together, they are not in a yeshiva. They're not in a bet midrash. They're not in a synagogue. They're not in the typical formal learning environments. They're usually off in nature somewhere, or in an isolated location somewhere where it's just the two of them, maybe two or three of them, and they're learning secretly, because the Zohar is a text of secrets. It's in Hebrew, it's called Torat Hasod, the Torah of secrets. And so you get that sense with the text as they're sharing that this is not meant for the mainstream. This is not meant as like, you know, everyone should be learning. It's definitely got that feel of like a secret club. Like they've tapped into something that is super precious, and they're sharing within the text. We learn the secrets, but it's not really meant to be for everybody, and that's why the text is like so enigmatic and sometimes really overwhelming, because it doesn't make sense. And sometimes you're like, what is going on here? Like, what are they? You get lost. You can get lost really easily in it, but it's meant to really not be understood in a rational way. But I really feel like it's meant to be experienced, and it's something that I want you to keep in mind when we're doing our learning. Now, we mentioned that the main character of the Zohar is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but it's him plus the group called the Chevraya. The Chevraya is in Aramaic, it means the companions. It's the group of students that Rabbi Shimon had, and there were 7 of them. One of them was Rabbi Elazar, his son. Then it was Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba was actually the scribe. He was the one that wrote everything down. Then there was Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Chizkiah, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yesa. That's it. There's 7 guys in this Zohar. And so they're like the main characters. And throughout the storyline, you'll see that they come across all these really weird characters. They'll be on a road and then meet like an old looking man, or like they'll meet a baby, and they're always encountering people with wonder and constantly like in awe, because they know that every encounter there's something for them to discover. Also, there was this concept in ancient times of like the hidden tzaddikim, where someone who on the outside looked like someone really poor or really uneducated, because remember, back in those days, people they weren't literate, they weren't getting an education. So most common people didn't know how to read the Torah, and they weren't versed in the teachings of the Torah. But we see in the Zohar that the way that the Chevraya interact with the world is that the world is constantly revealing secrets, constantly revealing new insights. And when they encounter that, there's something so beautiful about it, because they get really emotional. Like they'll start crying, or they'll start hugging each other or kissing each other. They're just like really emotional. And I think it's because for them, it's not just like another intellectual idea. For them, it's an experience. It's like a divine experience, and like an encounter with God. Okay, so in most um in most religions or spiritual practices, when you talk about mysticism is usually within the context of like an individual having an experience on their own. And in the Zohar, it's always within the context of 2 people coming together. It's always surrounded with a conversation around Torah learning. That it's not your typical sort of like mysticism, in the sense that it's not an isolated experience, it's a communal experience. It's very much focused that when 2 people come together, that teaching in the Talmud, that when 2 people come together and learn Torah, the Shekhinah rests on them. That's very much like prevalent in the Zohar, is this concept that when 2 people come together, it's always about, let's learn. Let's open up a fresh insight. Let's come up with, it's always creating the opening for the Shekhinah to come in through an analysis of the text that they're learning. So what I think is that they're pretty much like obsessed with God. That's how I see it. They're on a mission. They're on a mission to understand how God operates. What are the spiritual structures and processes that underlie all of reality? How does the spiritual world relate and interact with the physical world? They're not cold scholars. They're not looking just for ideas. They're looking for emotional experiences. For them, the Torah is the highest expression of God. And so by learning Torah, that's how they connect to God. Now, there's a big part of the Zohar that is very technical, where it focuses a lot on the Sephirotic system. And the Sephirot are like basically a character in of itself in the Zohar, because they take up such a huge part in the text. You really need to have a foundational understanding of the Sephirotic system in order to understand the Zohar, because the Zohar doesn't directly state the Sephirot. It doesn't directly address the Sephirot in the way that it is in future teachings, but it refers to them constantly within the context of archetypes, right? So we have some charts that I shared with you about the Sephirot, which we can open up in a minute. And I definitely want to do like a few minutes to just like review the system before we get started. But I do want to say that you can easily do like a whole course just to explain the Sephirotic system, which we're not going to do here, because I feel like so many of you already have the basis for it. But I will be referring to it, and I will try to fill in the blanks as much as I can if there's gaps in understanding the Sephirot. So the reason the Sephirot are explained within the context of archetypes is because the Zohar is very symbolic. There's a lot of symbols constantly being used here. And that's why I was saying that it's like so poetic. It's not really meant, there are parts that are meant to be read as pshat, just like the literal meaning is what it is. And there are times when the teachings are meant to be symbolic, not literal. And you have to know how to navigate that, because if things are taken literally, that's where it could get a little miscommunicated about what the true essence of the teaching is. So that's where you need guidance, is to understand when there's a lot of symbolic language being used, that it's not meant to be taken literally. It's supposed to guide you to a deeper understanding, and the only way that you can understand it is through those symbols. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind. Now you'll see that, like in the Talmud, whenever they open up a fresh insight, they say tashma, come and see. And in the Zohar, they always say tachazi, tashma means come and hear. And in the Zohar, it says tachazi, come and see. And you'll see that the reason why they always say, whenever they're learning something new, they say come and see rather than come and hear, is because they're visual thinkers. And the way that they're navigating these new insights about God and the universe and the worlds and Sephirot is all imagery. It's all imagery. And you can sense that they're tapping into a higher dimension, and they're accessing wisdom, and they're trying to grasp how to translate what they're seeing and what they're experiencing visually, and how to translate it in a way that it makes sense here in our physical world. Okay, and this is my last point, and then we'll start learning. I think if I was to say what is the biggest purpose of the Zohar, I would say that it's a huge project to explain the deeper meaning of the mitzvot. You really feel that as a very strong underlying motivation of the teachings, is this constant feeling like it's trying to give you a sense, why are the mitzvot so important? Why do we need to do the mitzvot? How are our actions down here in the physical world having such a profound impact on the spiritual world, and how our world is interlinked with the spiritual world? So there's the premise in the Zohar, which I don't know if people teach it this way, but it's pretty clear. The premise of the Zohar is that the supernal world has aspects of it that are broken, and that the reason that those aspects are broken and need to be fixed and to have a tikkun is because of actions that were done here in the lower world. And so by doing the mitzvot, we are rectifying the spiritual world. And why is that important? Why does the person need to care about rectifying the spiritual world? Because the spiritual world is the source for all of our life, our blessings, our health, our children, our family, our parnasa, everything is flowing from the higher world. and everything and we're completely dependent on that. And that flow of energies that gets translated into practical physical things that we experience in this world, that flow of energies is dependent on our actions. And so that's a huge teaching of the Zohar, is how important our spiritual actions are in this world, specifically the divine commandments, which is the mitzvah. So by learning the Zohar, we're understanding what is the spiritual mechanism for how Jewish spiritual ritual practice can impact the spiritual world, and then in return bring blessings into our world.